Good morning, Mom.
Good morning, Megan. Yay, we're here together again like
I
this.
know. And this is my mom, Marcia. We're here at
Ah,
Sacred Soul Mornings, talking again in the morning about spiritual stuff and just for fun going through the Tao Te Ching. And we're in chapter 15 and applying it to real life difficulties in our
mm-hmm,
lives and being transformed by this new way of thinking, the way. Oh,
mm-hmm.
yeah. Chapter 15 is another one of those ones where it kind of gives us the same message.
I know I was earlier this morning, I was mentioning to you, Megan, about how when I was looking at chapter 15 and then looking up some commentaries and different things yesterday, that I've started noticing when I'm doing this, um, kind of a calmness and a peace kind of happens. And And so I'm very grateful to be doing this. It's kind of like to um, awaken my spirituality in a positive way. And so I'm very grateful to do this.
And no
And
force. No
yeah,
force. It's just by talking about it, just by
mhm,
thinking on it.
just and to know that people, masters, people from all ages, way back, like when Lao lived, and we were talking about in the thing that you read about him making a reference to the masters before him.
I know. That's what chapter 15 starts out that way. He's like the ancients, the
Yeah, the
masters. So we
ancients.
think of them like that, and they thought of like these other people as being that um,
Yeah.
idealized spiritual people, maybe living as hermits in the woods with wildflowers and no responsibilities. So he dreamed of that primal lifestyle too, just like we think that he had this primal lifestyle because there's some art. There's some, art, Chinese art of him and his donkey up in the mountains in a hermit
Mm-hmm.
area. And so
Yeah.
we go, well, of course he had no problems. He's up on the mountain with his donkey and the breeze. But he didn't feel that way because in chapter
Yeah.
15, he says, pretty much, he says, of old, the Taoists were subtle and marvelous, and all this stuff, the ancients. And this is what they did. And we can be
Mm-hmm.
like it, maybe. But he also,
Mm-hmm.
by saying this, was saying I was not it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like these
Yeah.
primal people. And this the year, right? In case you're new to the Tao, and we're not saying the Tao is a any more important than anywhere else that you can find spirituality. We just have been enjoying doing it and studying it. 600 to 400 BCE.
Yeah.
So he's thinking those ancients.
Of the ancients before then. He was thinking about those wise people. Well, and so thought about this morning some of the stuff that I looked up yesterday was on Chat GPT, and I like to find connections. I don't know. I do kind of why is that doing that? I don't know. But anyway, connections. Okay, my sister's. Yeah, there are other things going on. But anyway, I thought I would share some of the things that I found on Chat GPT that connect with the Bible. And for some reason, it gives me great comfort to do that. So one of and it's talking about the wisdom from the ancients. And so then some of the things that the sages, and talking about the commonalities of the sages that Lao was referring to, and then the sages that are mentioned in the Bible. And some of the commonalities are that they are cautious, patient, humble, and as receptive as a valley. And then one of the verses that was mentioned in the Bible that talks about the people then, the Hebrews, Proverbs 11 and 2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Wow, that's kind of pertinent for nowadays. But anyway, James 3 and 17.
Boy,
But
we are
the
backwards. Sorry, we are backwards in our society. What is
it
going on?
backwards.
We're going,
But
I'm
not
high, haughty, and proud, and I like it. Boy. And we're getting the results of that as a society, of glorifying that personality type that is saying, I am proud and shameless in my pride, which is still pretty shallow. They have a
yeah.
shallow pride. That's why they do it. That's why they got that like bigger than life ego is because they don't know who they are. They're saying, I like guns, gun on my shirt. I don't know, little flags. because they don't know who they are. Anyway, yeah, boy, we are way backwards, but apparently Lao Tzu felt that way too.
Maybe, apparently. And then these writers in the um,
Bible.
ancient Bible, the Old Testament, and
Yep.
then the New Testament, James 3 and 17. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace loving, interesting,
Ooh,
considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit. So let's remember, those of us who call ourselves Christians.
I know.
Oh,
I'm just so
anyway.
flabbergasted. I'm so flabbergasted. I've
Sorry.
seen so many people on the news, even senators and stuff. We're just so flabbergasted. We're saying if you call yourself a Christian, call yourself a anything-ish, anything. What in the world? That's all. What are you doing? So, yes, that's true.
And so then Psalms, be still, know that I'm God. And I kind of, that's one of my favorites to think about often is be still, know I am God. And it is really hard to get still sometimes. And this is why I'm so grateful to be doing this, is because, and even going back and watching some of our old podcasts,
Yeah.
when
Us
I,
watching it.
yeah, when I do that, it's like, and I get something else out of it when I watch it again. I get something different out, a little, and I do have some stillness and peace when I watch some of those again.
Well, that's the
Inner
way.
stillness. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
that's the way works. Whatever spiritual flavor you're doing with the way, the spiritual truths of what is the universal probably, is it comes with, I mean, in the Bible it says with milk and meat. And I remember, like as a child, if you grow up in a fundamentalist biblical family, you read that Bible at your level from reading at 4 all the way up, and you get what you get out of it at
Hmm.
that time.
At
And
that
even
time.
now I can pick it up and I will still read the exact same verses over and over and go, whoa, I had no idea it said that. How did I ignore that for 20 years? How did I ignore that? And it's not because the word changed. It's
Hmm.
because my experience of life and probably my channel being more open
Yes.
to flow and the universal guidance that we can have um, is
Instead, instead
changing.
of being told, in the fundamental way of what those words meant.
Yeah, this is it and this is it forever, right? But it
And
does also say in there it's a living word.
a living word.
That mean, you know what that means? I know what that means. Why do we not think about what that means? It means it's dynamic. It's
Hmm.
dynamic, not static. And so this is too. Go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, and then also, oops, there it goes. Okay, hang on. And so another connections, inner stillness is seen as the condition for divine insight and spiritual clarity. And so, can I go on and read just a few little bit more?
Yeah.
Sure. Romans 11:33. Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Kind of makes me think of what you um, opened with, which is um, how do we achieve this better way of living? That was one of the questions is how do we do this with the Tao or the Taoism um, and there's no steps. And
There's
so this is kind of talking about that right here. Even and now I see this with different eyes. It's talking about there's really not steps for this. You just have to have trust and just keep on.
and it'll do it itself if you have your conduit open to the possibilities. That's all it means. It means being able to leap without knowing where the net is.
No, and that's a big thing nowadays.
Oh, we are net happy people.
Hmm.
Society-wise, our net is just out of control, especially here in the US. We've got like insurance upon insurance, and I talk about that all the time, but insurance is a really big, kind of like a crazy creation of worry. We've got long-term care insurance. We've got um, life
Okay.
insurance. We've got, I know we don't have all these things. I just mean the fact that we even have pet insurance.
Yeah.
We have, just in case your car insurance does not work, we have more car insurance on top of that. We have double medical insurances people have. It's just like,
And the hope that you're paying all this money, and the hope is that you don't have to use it.
yeah, and it's not even about, it's just, I guess, yes, the money is very irritating to me, but it's also the fear-based system of saying you need this all the time just in case. You need this all the time just in case your house has a tornado, in case your house has an earthquake, in case your house has a flood, in case your house has a fire. Like when you go down and you read all those things, you're like, wow, I hadn't even considered the fact that maybe my, tank
Mm.
might blow up and go through the roof. Or an airplane might hit my house. Is that covered? Like,
Wow.
woo,
Mhm.
or a
Mhm.
meteor. I don't know. But
Yeah,
you
exactly.
think
What would
about
that be?
that.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's just we live in a society that thinks about that all the time and gets us going on it too. Our natural instincts of what we like to watch are inflammatory things. And so our system we've created of media just keeps regurgitating that. And so we are fully full of worry all the time. And so you had two questions that somebody had asked about Taoism that are the two problems with Taoism, they said, okay? Now, Taoism, I'm not a I am not a specialist in this by any means, is kind of different than just the book, the Tao Te Ching. There was later on some movements to create more structure to this belief system. And so when we talk about the Tao Te Ching, we're just talking about this very basic level of Tao, of the way, of the universe, of the particles that all are in alignment
Mm.
with a
Yeah.
purpose.
Mhm.
Okay. But
Mhm. And that's
Taoism in modern language is also a type of belief system that has some tenets. So, yeah. So there's two questions you had that someone was like, these are the problems with Taoism.
mhm. And I had just mentioned one of them, but anyway, uh, what is and this is the big question, what is the reason for our being here? Why are we here? And so this person was saying that the Taoism way of thinking doesn't answer that. And so I
Yeah.
guess this person was saying we need some steps to show us, why we are here. We need some, and then the other one that I just mentioned is what are the steps for this better way of living?
Yeah.
What
And so
are
it's kind of hard. That's
they?
hard because this is a very like, and I tell you what, Lao Tzu, this wise old man or men or women or whoever who wrote this, I don't know, really
Yeah,
left it open on purpose. And I
yeah.
wouldn't have gotten this the first 5 million times I read this, probably not 5 million, but that I didn't understand coming from a fundamentalist background that you could have something that's so open-ended that says pretty much all the way up to chapter 15 says accept it or don't. Do
Yeah,
it or don't.
yeah.
This is the way or not. And like even in this book, this chapter of 15, where it talks about, the Taoists of old were all these wonderful things. They were subtle and marvelous. They were darkly connected, meaning they were connected with this hidden energy, right? But aware of it. They were deep. They were hesitant. That meant they took pause before they made decisions. As though crossing a stream in the winter. Think about crossing a stream in the winter, like a frozen stream. You are hesitant. You're not running across it to get in the
Yeah.
river. You're going, you know,
Mm,
you're listening. They're
yes.
apprehensive. They were as though they were fearing everyone. They were
Mm,
cautious. They were like guests. They were like melting. They were like ice at the first thaw. Whatever. The block of uncarved wood. That means that they're letting flow shape them. We talked about not having those safety nets. They were ready to leap without
mm,
the safety net because they're letting the flow shape who they are, not the other way around. They're not saying, here I am, carry me. They were murky as mud, but mud that settles in a clear. So, you shake up, like I think of my Moody Cow book. It's not mud, but you put the glitter in the bottle. It's like a
mm,
yoga Moody Cow book for children, and whatever. And we have all those horrible thoughts, right? You shake it up and you're all jumbled up, but then you let the glitter settles to the bottom. They're
mm,
like that. Anyway, and it keeps going a little bit. There's no way to teach that. Now, Taoism, now like as a belief system, or Buddhism tried, or even Confucius before that, try to make tenets to say a Taoist is, I don't know what, humble. A Taoist is patient, kind of like we do with, our culture did with the Ten Commandments, maybe, or the New Testament, and says, you know, a Christian is honest, a Christian is non-adulterous, a Christian is not a liar, a Christian is whatever. We had a lot of nots, maybe not so many pros. But there's not a way to learn it except by just pondering it, trusting, and
Trust.
letting that over arching connection, that dark connection, it talks about chapter 15, guide us. That's
Mhm.
why there's no steps for somebody who wants steps, who says, go
Yeah.
fast, go do
Mhm.
yoga, go
Yeah.
eat this.
Right.
It doesn't mean
There's
it's not there. It means that you're not the one in charge of it and it is hidden. It's a hidden knowledge. It's another one of those type of hidden knowledge systems.
And I was just thinking that, um, and whether people know it or not, they're on the way. And
Yeah.
whether they accept it or not, they're on the way. It's just whether they want to have steps outlined for them, or they want to control their own situations and put the nets around everything and everybody or whatever it is. But they're on the way too.
You're not separate of it.
Yeah.
You can be aware of it and go with the flow. Let God, and what did they say? Let go and let God is what the Christian thing is.
Yeah.
You can do that or you cannot. We always talk about the stream and grabbing at the sticks and the mud and the rocks and holding on for dear life and being slapped by stuff. You
Yeah.
can do that or you cannot. And so, like on a society level right now, with all kinds of political unrest and social unrest and racial unrest. Again, I was watching the LA protests in shock that I can't even believe what is going on with horses squishing people and whatever. What in the world? It doesn't even have to be Christianity. Where was your brain about humanity? But
Mhm.
anyway, um, we have, the way is in control of that too. It's not pretty, but it's in control. And so I guess I was thinking that's kind of like a boil, a society boil that has gotten infected. Ugh, that's a nasty thing. And it's got all that yucky in it, that pus. And maybe it needs to rise before it bursts out so that we
Mhm.
can get past that part of our humanity. Because in Taoism, we're all working together for the good of the whole body, not
Mhm.
for the detriment. And but it doesn't necessarily mean humans either. I do wonder about that because we are
Mhm.
not our flesh zipper robe.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah. What do you think that Lao Tzu thought about humans as being the
Well,
ancient? I don't know. Is it just
as
human?
being, mm,
I don't know.
I think he probably, he or they or whoever, God, like we talk about that force or that energy that is in all things. I
Yeah.
mean, get down to the atoms and the molecules and
No, the atoms and molecules. And I even think of like Saint Francis. There's a reason why that bird thing was so important. Him and the birds and realizing he was part of the birds or whoever else in the trees, right? We talked about, oh gosh, who was that? I can't think. Anyway, um, the difference between you and the
mm,
tree. There is none.
oh yeah. Yeah, we'll have to think about that some more and talk
But
about that some more.
once our I do think, and maybe I'm wrong, because that's the wonderful part about this is I can always say, maybe I'm wrong. And then later on I go, I was wrong. I love that ability. Maybe when we are, what's the word? Incarnated, we used that last time, word incarnated into an individual personality, just like a tree, whenever it has limbs. Like I have a new apple tree in the back. Okay. Now
Mhm.
it got pruned to death, but it's all right. It's got little leaves on it.
Still growing.
Still growing. It starts with a little sapling, right? And then it starts getting some little limbs. And then those limbs get, branches, and those branches get twigs, and those twigs get more twigs, and then they blossom out. It keeps, incarnating separation, right? But that little blossom never goes back necessarily to become the trunk again. It
Mhm.
incarnates in its own personality, its own
Just
bloom. Now, it
mhm.
does eventually kind of maybe cycle back down and become dirt and come back up. But maybe we retain our individual personalities in some aspect because we incarnated in that um, individuation. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, there you go. I thought so that we don't have to be scared of where am I going to go? Am I going to disappear and just become?
Yeah,
Hmm, I don't know.
that is the big, why are we here kind of thing. And because the biggest fear is like, where are we going? Why are we here? And then
Where's next?
where's next?
And I guess my biggest comfort has always been for me, and I don't know if anybody else finds comfort in it, is we were okay before we were here. We
Mhm,
don't know what it was, but it wasn't miserable. Even if it was nothing,
mhm.
we were
Yeah.
okay. And we kind of always want to go back to it. We don't
Yeah.
know what it
And
was, but we want to incarnate in the womb all the time. We love the womb. We think about it all the time. I want to go back where I have no choices. I know that I was loved.
Mhm.
That I know that there are things about me that other people do not see and misrepresent or missee it. They
Mhm.
see it wrong, and that's what makes me unhappy. Like whenever somebody says that you are shy, or you
Yeah.
are not worthy, or you're
Mhm.
a liar, and especially when those aren't true,
Yeah.
it really gets you. How do you know those aren't true? Well, because you know that your inner self is really this.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it wouldn't bother you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I know, and this is just very basic, but the thought came into my mind of going home. In our Christian tradition, we always and sing songs about someday going back home, but people don't. I don't remember our
Church.
kids at the time, yeah, emphasizing that a whole lot. But I mean, it's there. I mean, yeah, about going back home, which means we came from somewhere that spirit, that part of us that is um, inside the vessel, whatever,
I know
and
that's all. Yeah.
um, and then going back home.
And there's a universal belief almost about that
Hmm.
concept. And then there's other people who have other spiritual things they've done, like channeling, or I know like Carolyn Miss, I was reading something about her about archetypes and soul contracts. I know Wayne Dyer kind of even talked about soul contracts. So does Dolores Cannon talks about soul contracts. I mean, there's all kinds of layers to this. And it's okay if you want to dive down that and believe in it and think about it. But if that bothers you, don't. It doesn't matter because the way does not make you have to know it. You don't have to know. You don't have to know you have a soul contract and do all the things for you to get anything.
Because you're on the way, whether
Oh, you're
you
going to get it anyway. If you signed, I have
anyway.
a suspicion that some of us signed up for the fast track course so that we could be whacked to death to figure out our spirituality for our soul groups. I have that
Yeah.
suspicion.
Mhm.
And said, yes, I'm going to do it. Let me jump down there and incarnate in this crappy place and get whacked a lot so I could figure it out on fast track. Okay, that's fun. And other people didn't. I have that suspicion maybe, but it doesn't matter whether
Mhm.
I know that or not. Now, there are thankfully some breadcrumbs like this book and
Yeah.
just people I've met,
Mhm.
other books, and the
Mhm.
family I've been born into, thank goodness. That keeps me from completely laying on the ground inert.
Mhm.
And every once in a while, I might get a new email from someone says, I need your help. And I go, I can
Yeah.
keep doing this right when
Mhm.
you need it. I
Yeah.
guess in the Bible, we talk about, what do we talk about? About um, you're only given as much as you can
So that's the
handle. Accept.
milk and meat part.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean it's not going to be easy. I mean, because it's not easy, but there's only so much. And then you're going to be given a door or a window, or there's usually a way forward.
And
And
an ebb and flow of how it transpires. And I want, here's my simple thoughts again, but I keep thinking one of the things, I guess, one of my steps, I guess, thinking about how do we achieve a better way of living? We can't, but one of the things that I do comfort myself with sometimes, and it's from that Adlerian book,
oh,
the,
yes. Thank you.
yeah,
This is our other breadcrumb book. I'm so thankful that whoever decided, first of all, Adler, thank you for being a
Adler.
psychologist who questioned things and said, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this makes no sense. Wrote it down, and the other people in other countries decided to continue talking about Adler because here we don't. We talk about Young. And Young is not bad. Young
Yeah.
is great too. We just don't talk about all this stuff. So this is the book, The Courage to be Disliked. Thank goodness it became the Japanese phenomenon. I don't know why, but maybe it's because Asian countries are aware of non-dogmatic thinking.
And some,
And
but
so,
anyway, so then, what I keep hanging on to from that book, and not need, but I want to start reading it again.
me too,
Uh,
apparently. I got my bookmark in there. Mhm.
yeah. But one of the things I hang on to, and I think I've mentioned it before on a previous podcast, especially when I'm driving, is they are my comrades. They are my comrades, not my enemies, not my foes. Everybody is and it's really, and it is a discipline of the mind because we can mention so many people who are stuck in their egos,
Yeah.
and sometimes we don't like what they say and do. It's hard to think that we
Oh,
are
I know.
that that they are part of those little branches of the same tree, and that the thread runs through us all.
I mean, you got to think about like those people. You can't just think about the people who might be having a bad day and are a little yucky. You got to think
Yeah.
about those people, people who are trying to squish people with horses, people who are engaging in war because they enjoy it,
Yeah.
people who like to eat people. I mean, I've got to go to that level
Yeah.
and go, I have to, because those are the things that keep me spiritually seeking is why did this person do
Yeah.
this? Well, there are reasons.
And we'll here might not get it figured out, but know that there is some way though to go ahead and find some peace in the midst of it all. A
Yes,
little peace in the midst of it all.
that's
And the
why
ebb and flow of that peace.
people
And
felt compelled to show the way. And so Lao Tzu showed the way. Jesus said, I am the way. Look, do what I do. That's it. Do what I do. You won't be miserable. You may be scared, but you won't be as miserable. I'm sure he was terrified before he got crucified. He was. They talk about that in there. But he had peace during that time because of the way, even
yeah.
while waiting to be killed.
Yeah.
Gandhi
Yeah.
at peace. Even though Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't perfect in all ways, and we think about like he might have been with other women. I have to say that there was that element with his wife, and it always made me kind of angry at him, even though he's a great person.
Mhm.
It's hard to not have facets of people, right? Um, but he had some major strength to be able to go ahead and say things out loud because he believed in the way so deeply,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And we're all messy humans
Mhm.
because we do have a flesh body. And I don't care what anybody says, it is very related to animals. Our body is. We're
Mhm.
zipped up just the same. We still have hairs. We have hairs on our faces that we have to remove. Got 5 fingers. Mhm. Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah, we
I'll
got
di-
7 minutes. You can.
okay. I have started a couple of little things that I wanted to say out loud. Um, okay, and this is us trying, trying to think, okay, peaceful things. We welcome whatever comes as a valley welcomes a river. So I like to think about that and having that peace and accepting being on the way. To notice enlightenment, and the name of my chapter was The Freedom of Enlightenment, which is different than yours. But anyway,
That's darkly
so
connected.
to notice enlightenment, we all patiently, so that's being patient, wait for the muddy. I love this. And you mentioned it in yours too. We all patiently wait for the muddy thoughts to settle and our mind to become clear. Kind of like you shaking the glitter up in that bottle. And I love that thought
I
because
love,
it lets me know I can be human,
yes.
and have
And you
muddy
have to
thoughts.
be because we chose to do this human game. You were just said about the valley. Oh my goodness, that is so important. A valley is not a lake. A valley is an area that flow travels through. It has an entry and it has an exit. And I think of like the beginning, like, okay, think of a dam breaking, right? A dam breaks, and so we got a new valley over here and it hasn't had water in it before, or something like that, right? Like I don't know, water's in a new place. It shot out of the earth. When it goes through that valley, the flow goes through it. Is it clear water right then? No, it is not. It is like ripping up trees. It is ripping up the grass and the dirt, and it's all cloudy when that flow comes through and washes through to the other side. You are a conduit. All that
Mhm.
gets kicked up. And then as it settles, the sediment goes back down, and then you have a nice, clear flow as long
Mhm.
as you remain the valley. Now, if you decide to put a dam there, you're going to start having problems again. It's going to
Mhm.
push through. I just thought that was wonderful that you said that. So we need to seek to be like the valley,
Yeah.
the open conduit, and not be so terrified of everything because it'll work out for us, and it's a daily practice of contemplating that concept. That's all you have to do. Contemplate the concept. I know, I do. Last night I was having a rough time sleeping. I was thinking everything,
Yeah.
everything. I was thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to afford this? Oh my goodness, what if I don't have any more clients? Oh my goodness, what about if I don't fill that paperwork out in time? Oh my goodness, what about my mom and my aunts? What am I going to do about my mom and my aunts, these women down there in Kentucky, and I'm up here in Wisconsin? What am I going to do with them? What am I going to do? I was like, what
Oh,
am I going to do with the trees? What if a tree falls down at the lake property? What are we going to do? Like, like in 10
we
years.
do have a lot of things
How are
going
we
on.
ever going to get the truck or the car through there? If a tree falls down. Like I had many crazy thoughts. And it always works out.
Yeah.
We might have rough days, but in general, it always works out.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
was a Looney Tune. And I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep.
What
What a waste
happens?
of time.
It just rolls and rolls and rolls when at time, those kind of thoughts like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read one more little Bible verse thing and kind of fits.
Yeah.
Philippians 4:11-12. For
Uh-huh.
I have learned in whatever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer.
What a wonderful world if we could start honoring that type of wisdom. What a wonderful hope for the future.
Yes, and I don't think we need to have the hope.
I
I
think
do.
it's happening because I do think it's like a boil, and I think we have to get rid of the old garbage that needs to be rid of. And I think that things ebb and flow, and I think we're in that cycle.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Uh,
the only one.
and it will. So we have next week, or can I name my chapter 16?
Oh yeah, I know it's opposite probably.
Yeah. The
Go ahead.
still point.
Oh no, it's kind of similar. Mine's return to the root. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, return to the root. 16. Wow, we're doing pretty good. Look how far we are.
Yeah, and
We
it's
might
and it's not our goal. This is just a framework for us having a discussion
It is,
about.
and we're learning how to talk about stuff like this out loud, which is like I don't know, that's powerful. That's it.
Powerful.
And we're leaving it mainly too, is I want it other women and men or whatever, but especially the girls in our family, the young girls, to someday when they grow up, they're not grown, to all be able to go,
Oh, I can speak.
I can speak and have thoughts,
I have thoughts. My thoughts
have
are.
doubt, and question things. And so
Mhm.
they can sit there wherever they are in college or in mommies or whatever they're doing and put on a video and go, huh, that's interesting that these generations before me had these thoughts. That's the goal. So, anyway, that was it. So, this is Sacred Soul Mornings. Thank you for watching. If anybody watches, I'm having struggles uploading videos. Life,
And
yeah, go ahead.
your
Life
thoughts.
is a journey, not a checklist. So, breathe deeply and enjoy the ride.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan, very much.